If you're an instructional coach, one of the best tools that you have for communicating with teachers and getting into the classrooms is your instructional coach's newsletter. But does it work? How do you know if it works? All that hard work that you put into your newsletter, is it paying off when teachers open up that email? In today's episode of Instructional Coaching Today, I'm going to walk you through the steps to create a brand new newsletter that's not only going to be able to be used in the classroom, but that's going to have your administrators loving all the work that you do. And hello and welcome back to Instructional Coaching Today, a brand new show from the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and each and every week we are going to be deep diving into one of the important subjects that's facing instructional coaches today. If you like what you see here, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'm so glad that you are here to make TeacherCast your home for professional development. The topic of the show today is all about your instructional coaches' newsletters, those things that we fill out every single week. You might call it a Tech Tip Tuesday. You might pull it out once a month, but we create these newsletters designed to help us get into classes. But are they working? We're going to take a look at that today. Now, if you have any questions about this topic, we're going to make sure that all of the links are below, not to mention all of our chapters. So if you want to skip ahead to anything, you certainly can. And I would appreciate it if you took a moment and shared this video with some of your instructional coaching friends. And let's dive in to our instructional coaching session for the day. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at your newsletter today, and we're going to share with you a few different tips and tricks that I think are going to help you out. Now, before we get started, I do have one little warning. Some of the things that we talk about today might be a little controversial. You might be listening to this going, what is this guy talking about? Just stick along for the ride. Make sure you get to the end. And if you have any questions, leave them in the chat. Find me on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach. Hit that like and subscribe button. We are here to work together today and to help you out with everything. The first question that I ask any instructional coach is, what is the purpose of your newsletter? Think about that question. Who's your audience? What are you doing this for? If your instructional coaching newsletter comes out every single Tuesday, what does it matter? Are your teachers looking for it? What is the point of your newsletter? And once you have an answer for that question, my next question for you is, are your newsletters working? How do you know that they're working? Are your teachers checking them out? Are they saving them? Are they clicking through? Do you have analytics on it? What is that thing that you have to let you know that all the hard work you put in every single day is being worked on by your teachers, and that they're actually taking those newsletters and using them the way that you're intending? And the third question, of course, would be, how do we create a better newsletter? That really is what we're all here for. And thank you again for being here with us today. So I want to take a look at this one here and say, what are coaches doing to support their newsletters? Now, if we look at a traditional newsletter here, coaches are spending a lot of time. I ask you, how many hours each week are you putting into your newsletters? How many hours are you searching for resources? How many hours are you searching for videos, making videos? What does that process look like? What about the design? Are you somebody who's spending hours on Canva, Google Slides, PowerPoint, making everything look nice? Are you creating Bitmoji classrooms that have great graphics and designs and little pictures of yourself? Are you going for that wow factor? And then next here is, what is that conversation that coaches are having about their newsletters? Everyone's asking right now, what's the best platform? Should I use a slide? Should I use Canva? Should I make something in Haiku Deck? Should I use an Adobe product? What is that platform, and what is new and useful for teachers? And if you're a very special instructional coach, you're asking yourself the question, how can I plaster my newsletter in the bathroom? How do I make this so that way, no matter where a teacher is, they will have access to all of this great information? Some people even call it potty PD. When we're looking at the function of a coaching newsletter, let's take a look. Traditional coaching newsletters, if you really want to break it down, coaches might say that their audience is a teacher. They might say that the content of their newsletter is created by cool tools, news, updates, information, the stuff that they see on social media that they can't wait to share. Their platform is the popular application of the time. It might be, again, a slide, a Canva, an Adobe, something to that nature, because they've seen it, they've seen other coaches do it, and they want to try it themselves because they're going to have a good time with it. Their release schedule could be weekly, your Tech Tip Tuesday, if you will, or it could be monthly, or somewhere in the middle, but you try to keep a release schedule. And lastly, for the majority of coaches, their purpose is to help teachers learn about something, right? It might be the latest and greatest of an application, something curricular, but whatever it is, I'm here to send this to you because you're going to read it and learn something. But my question goes back to, is it working? How do you know it's working? Today, I'm going to introduce a brand new way of looking at newsletters. Your new coaching newsletter is going to have a different audience. And we'll explain this as we go. Your audience is not going to be teachers. It's going to be those district leaders that are supporting you and helping you find your way into the classroom. I'll go into a little bit of that in a little bit. The content, instead of being those new and cool tools that are happening, the things that you see at the ISTE conference, your content's going to be all supporting the strategic goals of your district and all the directives that the principal is giving out to the teachers. The platform should be something that is a district initiative. If your district is really focused on Google, I would argue that your newsletter should be on Google. You're showing how to take the tool that the district wants teachers to be using in the classroom, and you're doing something with it a little bit different, and you're showing off the possibilities. Your release schedule should be based around your professional development calendar. Now, that one usually startles a few coaches. They might say, well, we have a PD day at the beginning of the year, maybe one in February. I don't want to wait that long. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. And finally, it is a marketing tool. Your newsletter is a commercial. Your newsletter's purpose is to get coaches into the classroom to support their district and building goals and initiatives. Let's break all of this stuff down. Now, the question that always has to start this conversation is, what is the role of an instructional coach? Now, I ask you right now, pause the video, go down to the comments, let me know, what is the role of the instructional coach? For many coaches out there, the answer is, my role is to help teachers use technology, or my goal is to help the teachers with math, literacy, science, whatever type of instructional coach you have. I argue today that that's not your role. That's what you do. And there's a big distinction between what is the function of a coach and what does a coach do. An instructional coach really has one function. If you go up the ladder of your school district, you have a coach, you might have a principal, you might have district leadership. On top of that, you might have an assistant superintendent or a director position, and then on top of that, you have a superintendent. But above that, you have a board of education, and you fall into that line of succession. Every school district has what's called a strategic plan. And for many school districts, that strategic plan has curricular goals, building goals, digital learning goals, board goals, all of these things that say in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, these are the things that we're going to do. Somebody at the top of that ladder says, hey, we want to improve our science scores. And because they're going to improve our science scores, they have to ask the question, how are they going to be improving their science scores? Well, in order to improve their science scores, we're going to have teachers work with coaches who are experts in science. And those people are going to work together in the classroom, model, grow, build lessons, and hopefully that's going to improve the district's strategic goal of getting better in science. Same thing, if you're a technology coach, digital learning specialist, whatever that topic is, somebody up above has a goal that says, we are going to get better with digital learning skills. We're going to meet the standards. We're going to do whatever it takes to improve our students' technology-based skills. And if that is a goal for your district, that's probably why your district has brought you in as a digital learning specialist. So your function, your role in that district is to help your district solve their needs. Their needs are, we're going to improve the digital learning skills. We're going to improve our math skills, English skills, science skills, whatever that theme has to be. How do you do that? That's when we say, well, I do that by working with teachers. I do that by creating lesson plans, making things dynamic. The role of the instructional coach is to help the district achieve the goals of the strategic plan. If they didn't have that strategic plan, there'd be no need for coaches. Let's never forget, our role is to serve the district in making their goals. So where does the newsletter come in? The newsletter is just basically one of those tools in our backpack that's going to help us achieve our goals. That might be weird. Process that for a couple seconds. But so many coaches every week spend time, build their newsletter without ever thinking about what's going on around them. I hope that after we're done today, we're going to figure out how to realize that everything we're doing is part of a process. Our job is to help our administration meet their goals. If we don't, they might not want us around. Our whole goal for our newsletter is to help be a commercial and a vehicle to get us into that classroom so we can help our administration meet the needs of their goals. And to do that, I'm going to propose today a 3-part coaching newsletter. Very simple. First part, what does the district or the principal want? At the beginning of the year, our principals get up and say, when I walk into the classroom, this is what we want to be seeing. Could be discourse, could be digital learning, could be better science, could be more projects, could be group work, whatever it is. There's some kind of directive from the principal, usually by the district, that says when the classroom is happening, this is what we want to see. That's the first part of our newsletter. How do we help build and foster the goals of our district and the goals of our principals? The second one is, what are the standards and practices that need to be addressed? If we're going to be having an environment where the teachers are going to be doing those district mandated things, how is that going to look in the classroom? This is where we figure out in our coaching roles, how do we do that? So the first step is, what does the district want? How are we going to get there? And the third step is, what are teachers interested in doing? You need to have some kind of dessert, if you will, in your newsletter. Something that is absolutely going to be enticing your teachers to want to look at it. If you know a lot of your teachers are working on video, throw video stuff in there. If you know a lot of your teachers are looking at breakout EDUs, throw a breakout EDU in there. Make sure that you're always giving your teachers something. And the same thing. If your students are in a specific state of mind, let's say they're always doing Minecraft, throw a couple Minecraft things in there. As long as your newsletter is making sure to cover all the stuff that your principal is asking for and your district initiatives, you're going to have a winning newsletter. So here is our 3-part newsletter. It's not only to support our district in building goals, making sure that administration, when they walk in the classroom, is seeing what they expect, making sure that it inspires teachers to hit those goals, making sure that we have our best standards and practices that are aligned to our digital learning goals. Your principal's not thinking about ISTE standards, but you, as the coach, should be thinking about our ISTE standards. What are those ISTE standards that needs to be addressed in the classroom? What are the digital learning activities that are going to be happening? And what applications are being used by the district? For instance, if your district just made a big investment in Nearpod, your newsletter should be pushing Nearpod. If your district is using Canvas or just started a learning management system, your newsletter should be focused on, how do I get the district to use Canvas or my learning management system? So everything that's going to be happening above you should be focused in your newsletter. And then finally, supporting that classroom innovation and understanding what the innovation learning curve is and how we're going to get not only just our generals and our first followers, but the entire digital learning curve. How do we get them on board? It's not easy. There is an art form, and we're going to talk about that today, because it's our role as coaches to not only know what's happening in our classrooms, it's not only our job to know where those innovative dead zones are, if you will. You know, this teacher's kind of reluctant. This teacher's doing really well with it. But also, we want to make sure that we're always doing this with a student focus. Let's talk a little bit about monthly coaching cycles. Now, when I say coaching cycles, you might have your own version of this, teacher, coach, talking to each other over a period of time. Do me a favor, leave that direction and that thought process aside for a second, because we're looking at this as a monthly coaching cycle. Now, I say month, but this could be 2 months. You might have more buildings, whatever this looks like. But usually you have a first week, a second week, a third week, and a fourth week. Now, in the middle of this, we want to make sure that at some point your principal is going to get up to the staff and go, this is what I want to see. This is what I'm looking for in your observations. This is what we're doing. And how are you going to be supported in meeting my goal? That's where your instructional coaches come in. Here's the science coach, the math coach, the tech coach, whatever. And the idea there is whatever the principal wants you to be doing, that's your large group presentation. It's the commercial. Here's what they're looking for. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how I'm going to support you over the next 4 to 6 or 8 weeks. And here's what this is going to look like. Now, in week 2 or in the second phase of this application, that's when you're going to be working with your administration, your directors, your principals, your assistant principals. And you're going to say, look, I just gave the commercial. How do I break this down by department? How do I break this down by grade level? And you're going to find a way to have those meetings with those grade levels, with those departments. So that way you can take those broad skills and say, okay, I'm going to take this concept of student discourse, people having conversations in the class, but we're going to have individual meetings at those grade levels. And those don't have to be coach-led meetings. That could be, hey, at your next department meeting, can I talk for 5 minutes? How do you have those meetings where you actually have a chance to take the district directive, the principal directive, and share it in a more general term? Next step is to have those small group presentations, maybe you and a few teachers. Hey, next time you guys have a grade level meeting where you're just planning instruction, can I come in? Because your job there is to introduce skills that you couldn't in a medium size or big group level. And of course, all of this is going into the fact that what we want to be doing is eventually getting into the classroom. And when we say cycle, that's because every single week you should be somewhere in here. You should always be planning for the large group, for the medium group, the small group, and eventually those one-to-ones. And if we're looking at doing this as a physical conversation, physical meeting, physical presentation, whatever this happens to be, then let's take a look at where your newsletter sits. Our newsletters are broken down into 4 different weeks. Now, this doesn't have to be week 1, week 2, week 3. It could be twice a month. But if you'll notice over here on the top left, we start with our introductions. Hey, this is what's going on. I hope you're having fun. Then we always have some kind of a teacher or a student spotlight where essentially our job there is to say, Mrs. Smith is doing something great. Mrs. Jones is doing something great. Look at the kids over here. Now, whenever I talk about this and whenever I share this on a newsletter, if I'm going to say, look at this great lesson by Mrs. Smith, somewhere in that newsletter, I'm also going to have perhaps her lesson plan, perhaps her template, perhaps a video of them doing it. Some kind of correlation between this is something that we want to focus on and here you do it. It's no different than looking at a recipe guide. You're going to see the picture of the dinner and you're going to figure out what it's looking like, and you might even have a video of the guy cooking it. Then we've broken everything down in the last couple cells. If you're looking at week 1, it's okay to say, here's some great new features. Now I'm going to use Canvas, our learning management tool, as an example. What are the new features of Canvas, right? The district initiative might be using Canvas for grades. So step 1, what's new and great for Canvas? Step 2, how do you use Canvas for grades? Next, 3 ways to get your grading done in Canvas because the marking period's going to be starting soon. And then something new and something innovative. It could be, here's how Mrs. Jones is using Canvas to improve parent communication. Simple, basic formula. Now, when we're looking at the second week, we're going to spice it up a little bit. Hi, introduction. Here's something great from Mrs. Smith. And then we have the district initiative moves up. The principal initiative moves up. Something innovative moves up. And then finally at the bottom, we have, oh, by the way, don't forget these are new things. And the new features and favorite applications could be the same thing. Understanding that if you put it in front of me once, I'll see it. If you put it in front of me twice, I'll realize it's there. If you put it in front of me 3 times, I might pick up on the fact that these are new items. I might not be ready on the first week to see everything. But if you put stuff in front of me multiple times, that's great. And I see so many coaches redesigning a brand new newsletter each and every week with brand new content. Put stuff in front of people as much as possible, and you'll start to saturate the market. You can see in week 3 and 4, all you're doing is rotating the content. But in this example, the curricular goal is, how do I infuse Canva into the classroom, or Canvas into the classroom? How do I make this all work? So you can see there is a curriculum to putting all of this together. So what type of content should be included? Number 1, at the top, we mentioned those teacher features, those student spotlights. In the middle, you're going to be putting your instructional videos, your templates, links to curricular items, photos of classroom activities, something to keep their eyes in that middle. And again, you're going to be rotating that throughout the various weeks. And then finally at the bottom, and this is the most important, you're going to put that call to action. You're going to have a sign-up form, something about, if you want to learn more, here it is, or here's my schedule in your building, I'll see you soon. Something to make sure that your coaching newsletter is a vehicle to get you working with those teachers, get you working in that classroom. And it's not sign up for me or here's my booking form. It's, hey, if you want to use this in your classroom, let me know. Unfortunately, we see 2 big problems with newsletters. The first problem is there's no clear call to action, right? You're putting all this time into a newsletter, and then at the bottom, it just says, find me. Probably the teachers aren't going to see that as the problem, right? So you want to make sure that every little section has something. Here's my district initiative on Canvas. If you're interested, call me. Here's 3 ways to use Canvas in the classroom. If you want to try one of these, call me. Everywhere should be some type of a call to action, whether it be a button, an embedded form, a hyperlink to the form, or some kind of a combination. And the other form that we see is that it's not searchable. And we see this a lot in coaches. They make something nice, they save it as a PDF, they send it out. They do something in a graphic program, they share it out. One of the issues is many times teachers want to search in their inbox. So when we're looking at our newsletters, I would argue, make sure everything is searchable. If they can't search it, it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, why are we putting time into it? I want to end today with a few strategies to avoid in email marketing. Now, notice I am saying email marketing, not newsletters. There's a difference. A newsletter is something that's general, that goes out to everybody, whereas email marketing is more specific. I'm sending this newsletter to everybody, or I'm sending this piece of content to science teachers, to math teachers, to 3rd grade teachers, to the teachers who have been working with me, making sure that we're getting people the information as they need it. A couple things. Don't make it too busy, right? We all have seen newsletters, emails, slide decks that have just a ton of stuff. Your teachers aren't ready for it. Their teachers aren't interested in it. They're going to look at it, not know what they're doing, and pass it on. Don't make it too busy. Don't make it too overwhelming, right? If I'm a teacher that doesn't understand the subject and I see a newsletter coming in with a lot of words, I'm not going to take the time to digest it. But don't make it too general. If I'm going to be sending something to the math department, highlight the math department on a newsletter. Highlight the science department on a newsletter. And because not all of our teachers are techie, don't make it techie. Keep it curriculum. Remember, our job is to help the teachers meet those standards, their English standards, their math standards, their science standards, through the digital learning tools, through the science skills, through the math. We are always the vehicle from which they need to complete their job. We are here for them. They are not here for us. Also, don't make it too long, right? If you give me an 11-page newsletter, I'm not going to look at it. 1 page is great. 2 pages is good if it's searchable, scannable. Make sure that it's not too long. And I believe in Tech Tip Tuesdays, but doesn't have to be every single Tuesday. Too few. We had mentioned if you're going to do a PD day in September and one in February, have a few more. Make sure that people know that you're there and don't confuse them. There's a lot of emails coming out from district leadership, principal leadership, union leadership, you name it, parents. Don't make it confusing. So in wrapping up, here's what we're going to be looking at. Here's basically where our newsletter should be if you're looking at this from an email marketing point of view and not just a traditional Tech Tip Tuesday point of view. Number 1, keep them simple, right? Make sure that everything is organized. Make sure that it's scannable. Make sure that we can have our teachers go through it and see it. Don't be overwhelming with things. Just keep it interesting, keep it organized, and make sure that your teachers are interested in seeing it as they go through. Have it target marketed. It's certainly important to have a general newsletter that goes out amongst your staff, but what if your next email was only to third grade teachers because you're working with them on third grade curriculum? Next thing, we want to make sure it's realistic. We want to make sure that you're not giving them skills that are way above their heads. You want to make sure that somebody can look at this and say, I can do this. You want to make sure it's easily digestible. You got 2 to 3, maybe 4 seconds for somebody to look at it, decide what they want to do, and it's a 50-50 chance. They're either going to read it or they're going to trash it. Make it easily digestible. You want to have it sent when needed. I get the Tech Tip Tuesdays, but if you don't need one next Tuesday, don't bother sending one next Tuesday, or only send it to 4th grade teachers. Or maybe you come up with a calendar where the first week of the month is everybody. The second week of the month is going out to kindergarten and 1st grade teachers. The third week of the month is going out to 3rd and 4th grade teachers. The last week of the month is going out to 5th grade teachers, etc., etc., etc. So don't feel like you have to send everybody everything all the time. Always remember that our newsletters are mini commercials. It is important to make sure that everything that we're doing is going to help propel those coaching conversations, get you into the classroom, get you doing what your function is in that district. And lastly, easily searchable, making sure that if it's in their inbox, whether they're on your coaching website, no matter what it is absolutely easily searchable. I'm going to end today with a few different questions. Please feel free to check these out. Leave a comment below. Does it matter what platform you use? For me, no. I can make an email newsletter in a basic text-based email. Item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. Simple. No graphics, no nothing. Just text with links to other things. For you, you might say, I need to use Canva. I need to use Google Slides. And that's totally okay. Whatever works for you. Does it matter how often you send a newsletter? I'd argue no. Once a month is great. Twice a month is great. Every week's a little much. Does it matter what content you put on your newsletter? Yeah, it certainly does. Making sure that your content's going to be meeting the needs of your district, making sure your content's meeting the needs of your principal. When they walk in a classroom, are they going to know you've been there, you've done a great job, you're supporting their goals, or do you have your own agenda? And if you do, that's not going to fly. You want to make sure that everything you do is supporting the goals and district recommendations for what should be happening in your classroom. Does it matter if teachers read your newsletter? Of course it does. You want them to be reading your newsletters. Does a tree fall in the woods and make a sound? I asked this question a little bit as a silly thing, but really, if you send a newsletter and nobody reads it, what's the point of the newsletter? And I hope you got that from today. And lastly here, does a coach or administrator set the curriculum for your newsletter? Absolutely. When you're having those conversations with your administrators, when you're having those relationships with your district leaders, what do they want to see when they walk into the classroom? That is the job. You're hyper and laser focused on everything that they're looking for, so you can say to them, look, we're trying to move forward. This is how we're moving forward. This is how my newsletter is supporting. This is how this other program is supporting. Everything needs to be focused on what is the district looking to see from their teachers when they walk into that classroom. Finally, I'm going to end with, what do you do after you send your newsletter? It's simple. You follow up. You walk into rooms. Hey, how you doing? I never walk into a classroom and say, did you see my newsletter? But I'm certainly going to bring up topics that I mentioned in the newsletter. If a teacher says, I'm looking for help on a report or on a lesson or on an activity, you can certainly reference something that you mentioned kind of indirectly. But the point is, you want to make sure that your newsletter is being used. And, you know, I would never ask a teacher, did you read my newsletter? But if you mention something in it and they go, I remember you mentioning that. Cool. Now you know that there's buy-in. Of course, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I am happy to help you out. I'm going to make sure that the links are below, but you can find us over at Ask the Tech Coach. You can join our Instructional Coaches Network, and we want to make sure that we are absolutely here for you and that we are helping you meet the needs of your program, your administrators, and of course, your teachers and students. So if you're looking to create your next Instructional Coaches newsletter that's designed not only to help your students, but also meet the needs of your district and your building leadership, I urge you to take a look at some of the things that we talked about today. Feel free to leave a comment. Let me know how I can help you out. And that wraps up this episode of Instructional Coaching Today. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and until next time, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.